Good evening, you're watching Estuary TV News. Coming up, we visit Barton, where there's every chance of a new memorial to one of the town's lesser-known literary figures. And we examine the issues surrounding home improvement for the disabled. And Pew Pew Barley McGrew, I'll be talking to Jamie Morris and Rachel Smith about young people, the Fire Brigade and the Prince's Trust. Welcome to Estuary TV News. I'm Hugh Richards. First of all, it's over to Richard Morris for the news headlines.
Hello there. The number of disabled people waiting for adapted homes is unsatisfactory, the head of a social housing partnership has admitted. That's after it emerged that 77 families in the highest priority band are still waiting for suitable homes across North and North East Lincolnshire. Tony Bramley, Chief Executive of Shoreline Housing Partnership and Home Choice, which helps disabled people find homes, admitted there is a problem with supply. But he says it will be difficult for housing groups to solve alone because of the high cost of adapting properties.
Perhaps we need to work more imaginatively with our health sector partners, because although we're the people who might be spending the money on adapting a property, the beneficiary of that, apart from the household, is probably actually the health and care services, who are not having to look after somebody in hospital or in a specialist home. So we pick up the tab for that and they reap the benefit, and therefore I think there's a discussion to be had about how we perhaps pool budgets and work more effectively together so that both sectors benefit for the benefit of the client, the customer, the tenant.
More on that later on tonight's show. Humberside Police are appealing for information after a collision on Newland Avenue in Hull. No one was hurt, but the driver of a black Mercedes drove off before it was possible for the driver of a blue Ford to exchange details. The incident happened at 8 AM last Monday morning. A government grant is being used by the 4 Humber authorities to tackle homelessness. The grant-funded scheme will see all the Humber authorities coming together to start a passport for homeless people to try and prove to landlords they can be reliable tenants and get them into housing. Simon Fraser, portfolio holder for Environment, Housing and Planning at East Riding of Yorkshire Council, outlined why it was important the 4 authorities work together on this scheme.
Will it help us to work along with our other estuary local authorities, so North East Links, North Links, the City of Hull and the East Riding will be working in partnership on this initiative, and that's absolutely right that we should do that, because of course homeless people don't really recognise where the local authority boundaries are, and a homeless person could be crossing over those boundaries very easily, and it would be much more sensible for us as a group of authorities to tackle this together.
That's all from me for now, and I'll be back with more news soon. If you've got any news for us, please call us on Grimsby 31553. Bye for now.
His work includes famous novels and movies such as the Get Carter film starring Michael Caine, but people neither recognise his name nor know where he was from. Ted Lewis was from Barton, where he may soon have a memorial. Dave Nunn has more. But he's out of shape.
It's regarded as one of the greatest British films of all time, constantly being voted at the top of various polls. Get Carter is derived from the novels of the same name, which draw their inspiration from closer to home.
Yeah, Ted Lewis. A lot of people, for some reason, haven't heard about Ted Lewis in Barton-on-Humber, but mention Get Carter, and yes, they know everything about that. And of course, he wrote the book on which it was based.
Ted Lewis has many local connections. Not only did he live in Barton for the majority of his life, he also attended a jazz school in Hull and wrote a novel about Barton called The Rabbit.
He was encouraged by Henry Treece, who was a great poet and a writer, not only to be interested in graphics but interested in literature. And he persuaded his parents to let him go to the art college, which was something they hadn't got any thoughts of. He went to the art college in Hull. He stayed there for 4 years. During that time, he was the founder member and player in the Unity Jazz Band. In the heady era of trad jazz, he went on to write 9 novels altogether, some of which are based in this area. One in Mablethorpe, would you believe, and one completely in Hull, and one in Barton-on-Humber. So he did an awful lot in his short life. He died when he was 42.
Monty hopes to create a memorial to Ted in the town he loved.
There's a new arts centre which is being proposed for the middle of Barton, and they've agreed to have a study area, to have a memorial area, we're going to do a trail of all the significant places in Barton and also extending into Hull. So we want to try and recreate interest in that kind of area, and we want to have a memorial jazz festival.
It's hoped these memorials will solidify and strengthen the link between Ted Lewis and Barton.
You're watching Estuary TV News. A little later in this programme, our regular feature Reflections, this week from Caister Church, and Dan Kemp will be here with all the sports. And now I'm joined by Jamie Morris and Rachel Smith, representing the Prince's Trust at the Humberside Fire and Rescue Service. Rachel, Jamie, many thanks for coming in. You're responsible, the Prince's Trust at the Rescue Service, or what those of us of a certain age call the Fire Brigade. You're providing a course for young people that should be giving them a sort of confidence in going on to getting further careers. Jamie, just give me a little bit more detail than that. That's a bit of a sketch.
Yeah, the idea of the course is to work with 16 to 25-year-olds who are currently unemployed in the local area. They go through a 12-week programme of different activities, qualifications and training, with the idea at the end of it we then move them on into like a positive destination, whether that be employment or further education. And the idea of using the fire service as a brand and the organisation to help them is it motivates them, we can help them with teamwork skills, improve the confidence, and we're quite a strong brand, and we also then, it's us helping the local community.
And Rachel, it's probably important to emphasise this isn't necessarily a course about being a fire and rescue, a firefighter.
No, it's not. I mean, it's led by us as probably quite a good incentive to get people onto the course, but the actual course itself is aimed at increasing the number of qualifications that the students have. They go through a number of different qualifications such as your food safety, your customer service, just basically making them seem then more employable to hopefully future employers. So it's more to make them a bit more well-rounded in that respect, but it's not a direct link to the fire service.
But it's a 12-week course, Jamie, as you said, and there's some fairly exciting events and features on that course. Just give me a little bit of the detail of what will be taking place.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, during the 12 weeks, it's broken into like 7 distinct areas of work that the young people do, and that includes ranging from a residential trip to the Peak District to improve the teamwork skills, communication skills, confidence.
And that's always important. That might be the first time they've been away from home.
Yeah, very much so. Often it is. Often it is that it's the first time they've left the area. We take them to the Peak District and facing the elements and doing all these things. So it's a great confidence builder for them. And then that leads us on to other areas like community projects and work experience, where they get hands-on practical experience of working in a company of relevance to maybe a career they want to pursue in the future.
And there's an aspect of it as well which involves giving presentations, doing a little bit of research, maybe coming up with ideas and trying to provide a persuasive argument for those ideas. Is that the communication side of it's quite important as well.
Definitely, yeah. They work towards what we call the final presentation week. They work towards that the full course, and the aim at the end of the course is to then put everything they've done into 2 minutes and then be able to present that to a room of, well, up to kind of 80 people. We have a lot of fire service dignitaries come and people they've dealt with whilst on the course, and you'll get plenty come on kind of day one, the first week, who would think that was pretty much impossible, you know, quite quiet introvert, not very confident, lacking those communication skills, but by week 12 they amaze themselves, they amaze everybody else there because they've come on so well to be able to actually present to so many people. So we work on a lot of communication skills and general confidence, really. And
it's important. The Fire and Rescue Service is. We all know that they're national heroes, really, aren't they? A whole part of their aspect of their job is that they're terribly positive, terribly courageous, and terribly skillful. And there isn't a problem they can't solve, and they don't mind walking into a burning building. Is that an aspect of that ethos, of that sort of spirit called esprit de corps that rubs off on the people that you're looking after?
Yeah, very much so. It's all about the motivation to, nothing's too big a barrier to overcome, and the fact that even though you might get rejections in applying for jobs, the willingness to carry on, keep applying, develop your skills, confidence, and have a bit of self-belief and raise your self-esteem as well. That's very important, and that's definitely inbuilt within the 12 weeks.
Do they get a chance to slide down that pole?
Unfortunately not, no, unfortunately not, but they still have a full packed 12 weeks of really enriching activities to develop them and move them on at the end of it.
Rachel, who's this course for? What do you have to be to get onto this course?
Well, age-wise, it's 16 to 25-year-olds. That's the most important thing. But it's really aimed at those who are currently unemployed, who are out of education, out of basically anything that's, you know, keeping them busy from day to day. And the aim of it is to get those who are unemployed back into employment, or it might be back into education or volunteering or an apprenticeship. So those who are kind of looking for something to do, who are in that age category.
Do you need any qualifications before you start? Is there any barrier?
No, if anything, we do go after that. You know, you might not have a good number of qualifications, which might kind of put employers off a little bit. So the aim for us is to increase those number of qualifications, which, like I say, makes you more employable. But no, that's definitely not a barrier. Qualifications. We're trying to get you more qualifications.
And how long has this scheme been running, Jamie?
In Humberside, we've been running it for coming up to nearly 3 years. We've just completed our 10th team programme in Grimsby, and we're just in the process of starting our next team programme in Grimsby. And now we're expanding into Scunthorpe at the end of February. So it's becoming more and more established, and up and down the country, lots of fire and rescue services have delivered this course for a number of years. And do you,
so it's got a bit of a track history. Do you know how successful it's been? Do you have any way of keeping tabs on how many of the people who you've had going through these courses have gone on to great things? Yeah, we track people's progression after they finish the course, and we keep a record of those that have moved on to employment or education, and the success rate is extremely high. On our last presentation event, we invited back a selection of people from previous courses who presented, and they're all now in work or full-time education. So it has turned the life around, but some people just use it as that little bit of a spark to reignite them and get them back, you know, into a career. So yeah, it has been highly successful. And Rachel, we've mentioned, you know, the sort of outdoor team group activities, things like that, giving presentations in front of a room full of 80 people. Do people enjoy the course? Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it can sound a little bit daunting when we are explaining it and saying the different parts to it, but I honestly can't think of anyone who's not enjoyed it. I mean, I've done 2 courses now, and people love it. People describe it as life-changing, and I think when they are saying these things, you do actually realise how much it can affect people's lives and how much they can get out of it. And it's not just a qualification thing. It's skills, it's friendship, it's a social thing. It gives them routine. How do people who are interested in doing this, how can they get in touch? What do they have to do? Well, there's a few ways. In Grimsby, we've got a taster event tomorrow at 2 o'clock at Cromwell Road. Right. If they can't make it tomorrow, Thursday at 2 o'clock. And in Scunthorpe, we've got 2 taster sessions in February, one on the 10th, one on the 12th. And if they want to get in contact, they can go to local job centre, look on the Fire Service website or the Fire Service Princess Trust Facebook page. Jamie, Rachel, thank you both very much. Thank you. Thank you. We value the rights of the disabled, but there are still people in our area living in homes that make their lives a daily struggle. The necessary changes can be expensive, and that means that people, young and old, might have to wait years for the adaptations they desperately need. James Dunn has more on this issue.
Bailey has cerebral palsy. It means he can't walk and even struggles to sit up alone. Over the last 3 years, he's grown, and now simple but essential tasks such as taking him up and down the stairs every day are taking their toll on his family.
Having to lift him up and down the stairs, in and out the bath, can't do that anymore. I've been to the doctor, was put on prescription for bad back. Was put on antidepressants as well, because it gets me down. I don't feel like his mum half the time because I don't do the things that I should be doing. He's my responsibility, and I should be able to bath him, but I have to rely on the school to shower him every day now because I can't do it.
The family need a through-floor lift to get him upstairs, wider rooms and corridors for his wheelchair, and a wet room to wash him. But their current property isn't suitable for adaptation.
I've been refused over 40 properties now due to not having the adaptations that are suitable for Bailey.
But Tanya and her family are part of a wider crisis. In North and North East Lincolnshire, nearly 450 families in the highest priority category are waiting to be rehomed. 77 of those include someone living with a disability and can't find a property with the suitable adaptations.
And particularly when you're looking at full adaptations where you've got ground floor, complete ground floor living, such as ground floor kitchens, bathrooms, wet rooms, bedrooms, the number of properties that can supply that to a high standard is comparatively low. Therefore, there is a danger that people can find the waiting times for those types of properties quite lengthy. So I think it is a problem, yes.
And despite efforts to build for the future, the problem could get worse before it gets better.
Well, it seems to be increasing, and I think that's because, as covered elsewhere on the National Health Service, people are living longer, people with disabilities are living longer, people are acquiring disabilities and yet living comparatively successfully, and therefore I can only see the demand going up rather than going down.
And until the problems are solved, people like Tanya and Bailey will be living in limbo, hoping, searching for a better life.
He's 13. What 13-year-old boy wants his mum to shower him? It's just independence for him, getting him back doing stuff, you know, that he wants to do. He used to be able to take himself off to his room himself, but since coming here, he's got none of that. It's all gone.
And now for reflections. This week, the Reverend Ian Robinson of Caister Church.
The other day I spent some time with the student council from our primary school here in Caister, and we were exploring what they thought about RE. And as you'd imagine, being a church school, we think religious education is important. And it was gratifying to learn that they actually enjoy RE. They said they enjoy learning about other faiths, but also they enjoy learning from other faiths and how the beliefs of other people affect the way we live our lives. Well, of course, the main area of study is Christianity, but they also look at Hinduism, Islam and Judaism. One of the questions we asked was why they thought it was important to learn about other faiths. Some of the children said they thought it was important because it's enjoyable and it's fun and it's interesting. But some of them said it's important to learn about other faiths because when we learn about what other people believe and think and how they live their lives, we understand them better. When we understand people better, then we learn to be more tolerant and respectful of other people who are different from us. It's quite a deep thought from children of such a young age. The events of last week in France were quite disturbing, and it's difficult to understand what's going on in the minds of those people who committed such atrocious acts. But I just wonder whether if we learned a little bit more about each other and what we all believe, then there might not be a foothold for such terrorist activities to take place. In the Gospels, Jesus said that we should learn to be more childlike or childlike in our thinking and in our faith. And when we become more childlike, then we stand to have a much better world. And perhaps there is more to that statement, as my young friends have taught me, than first meets the eye.
And now I'm here with Richard Morris for a précis of the weekend's news. Richard.
Hello, Hugh.
What's been going on?
Right, well, we've managed to first of all arrive at bottom of the pile for business growth and job prospects over the decade in Grimsby, which obviously isn't great news at all. This is a research paper carried out by Cities Outlook, which is published by the Centre for Cities Policy Institute. They've said that Grimsby, over the past decade, number of businesses have dropped by 245, were bottom of the pile for business growth, fourth bottom for population growth and the sixth bottom for jobs growth out of all of these areas in the country.
That makes it sound as if Grimsby's not doing very well at all.
Yes. Now, I mean, it's worth pointing out that it is clarified in this article that actually Grimsby is lumped into North East Lincolnshire as a whole. So obviously maybe other areas that are very rural obviously aren't quite, obviously they may not have the businesses anyway. I mean, there are some good things in here. I mean, they've also said that we have the 14th highest number of startups per 10,000 in the population. We're 22nd for digital connectivity in the UK, so 78.3% of us have access to super fast broadband in our area. And Great Grimsby MP Austin Mitchell has said that, it's a very depressing read, but the Conservative MP Martin Vickers from Cleethorpes says it's a great thing. He doesn't think comparing North East Lincolnshire with some large urban areas makes for a fair comparison.
It's a bit comparing apples and oranges.
Yes,
isn't
it is a bit.
And I suppose one could be glass half full and say that it just suggests how much potential there is here yet to be realised.
Yes, indeed, especially with startups.
And the next story.
Next story is £82 million have been blown on fixed odds betting machines across North Lincolnshire. So this is people who
Most
go
of
into...
it by me.
Well, oh dear, Hugh. I mean, you know, these are those machines that were called by one of these pressure groups against, you know, the gambling fair initiatives and all those. They were called the crack cocaine of gambling and betting, because they, you know, constantly tempt you with putting in more money.
Well,
and
people can take responsibility for their own decisions.
Yes,
they don't
yes,
have to succumb to temptation.
it is clarified here that actually Betfred, you know, people can cite, you know, if they're betting in Betfred, which is the largest betting shop provider in North Lincolnshire, you know, you can sign self-exclusion contracts. You can say, please don't allow me in this shop. However, you know, this gentleman, Adrian Parkinson from the Campaign for Fairer Gambling, says, well, actually, that doesn't mean anything, because at the end of the day, if you've got a problem, you may not necessarily recognise that you have a problem. And, you know, asking someone to sign a self-exclusion agreement,
there is no such thing as fair gambling. The whole point of roulette is that it's always at least 36 to 1 in the house's favour.
The house always wins.
Extremely naive if you're expecting
the house always wins.
A fair game.
Unless if you're James Bond.
Indeed.
Unless if you're James Bond.
One more very quickly.
Well, yeah, this is the So Festival. Have you ever been to the So Festival in Louth?
I have not. No.
It's actually quite good. I've been before. I don't know why I'm saying that so surprisingly, but it's a networking event. People can go along and it'll be great.
And that's in Louth?
That's in Louth. It'll be between June 25th and July the 5th.
Richard, thank you very much. Now it's time for Dan Kemp and all the sports news.
Hull City went down 3-0 to West Ham United yesterday. The Tigers went in at 0-0 at half-time, but injuries to James Chester and Alex Bruce set the side back as they eventually went down 3-0 in the capital. Scunthorpe United also suffered defeat, losing 2-0 in a dramatic fixture at home to Bristol City. First-choice goalkeeper Sam Slocum was forced off with a broken arm early in the first half, before his replacement James Seven picked up exactly the same injury shortly after the break, forcing Andrew Boyce to go between the sticks. J. Emmanuel Thomas and Luke Freeman scored for the away side. Grimsby Town came from behind to beat league leaders Barnet 3-1. John Akinde gave the away side the lead before strikers Ollie Palmer and Linnell John Lewis gave the Mariners a mid-game lead. Jack McCreth scored the third early in the second half to seal the win. Meanwhile, North Ferriby United went down 2-2 at Stadebridge Celtic to earn a point. An own goal in the 87th minute equaliser from Greg Anderson gave the villagers a share of the spoils. In ice hockey, the Hull Stingrays won 1 and lost 1 against Fife at the weekend. The Rays visited Kirkcaldy on Saturday, winning 6-3, but couldn't replicate the result on home ice yesterday, going down 3-2. They now sit 7th in the Elite League. Meanwhile, Hull Kingston Rovers gained the upper hand on rivals Hull FC, defeating them 28-22 at the KC Stadium. The pre-season clash gave plenty of new signings the opportunity to impress the Derby crowd, including new Robins man Ken Sear, who scored 2 tries. And across the Kurds, Hull IUFC beat fellow relegation candidates Luctonians 27-0, whilst Hull Ionians lost their grip on top spot to Ampthill District after their game was called off. And that's all for the sport.
That's all we have time for this time. Please get in touch in the usual ways. But until tomorrow, good evening.
Hello and welcome to Estuary TV's weather. Another cold day on Tuesday with freezing fog patches. Dry for most of the day, but cloud increasing later with perhaps some snow showers by the evening and a maximum temperature of 3 degrees. Remaining cold on Wednesday with overnight frosts and patchy freezing fog. Rather cloudy with some sleet or snow.